We live in a world of instant gratification. Start today. If you're struggling with yourself. The purchase of a vehicle is one of the worst investments you can make. Everybody who got that car didn't realize
they had to pay taxes.
They had to pay taxes on the gift. Never, never take money from your 401k.
They don't want to wait. I'm so excited to be here. This is something I have wanted to do for such a long time. In addition to giving you guys real estate tips, I want to introduce you to my dad, who is a retired financial advisor and has really prepared me for life with some of the best finance tips that we're going to discuss with you today. I think that people are so remiss to understand how to budget and really save these days. And so I thought that this would be really helpful. And here we are. Thanks, Dad. I appreciate you doing this.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So let's dive right in. I think it's so hard to save without truly feeling deprived. So I've never felt deprived in my savings. What would you say is the smartest way to save without feeling deprived?
There's a concept that I call pay yourself first. When you pay yourself first, whatever money you are getting, whether it's from a job or even if it's from birthday gifts, you take a certain percentage and you pay yourself first. That means you take money and you put it aside. That's money you do not spend. If you have a job where you have a regular income, or even if it's a job where you work commissions, determine what percentage you would like to put away for the future. There are two ways you can look at this. One way is take 50% of whatever your income is and put that aside to cover your expenses. With the remaining 50%, take 30% and put that aside for the things that you want. These are not things that you have to have, but things that you would like to have.
Like coffee at Starbucks.
Whatever, yes. I have always advocated that with the remaining 20%, take some of that money and be charitable. Put it away for giving.
Which is so important now, especially at a time where people are very much like, what have you done for me lately? I think we've really lost our charitable spirit.
We live in a world of instant gratification. And many of the people who are working are stressed because they have car payments, they either have rent or a mortgage, and they have possibly children and the expenses of having children. And they really don't concentrate on putting money away for the future because their immediate needs are so great. I have recommended that you put aside a minimum of 10%. And if you can, put away even more toward a retirement plan or toward just money that you want to put aside for a car or a house or other expenses that you're going to incur within the next 3 to 5 years.
So that leads us to our next question. How much should I keep in an emergency fund, or as we like to call it, our rainy day fund?
I always recommend 6 months of expenses should be in the rainy day fund.
And that's something that you don't touch, that just sits in your account.
Exactly. And that money can be put in a bank, or if you have a brokerage account, you can put it into a money market account.
Like a high yield savings account.
Exactly, where the return you're getting is not as important as the fact that that money is readily available in case of an emergency.
Right, which that is the key, right? So that you can easily tap into it if you need it.
Correct.
For like if your roof leaks, for example, on a rainy day.
Right.
So the next question, should I prioritize paying off debt or increasing my savings?
I always believe in being debt-free to the extent that I believe that if you want something and you put it on your credit card to purchase it, you must have the money to pay for that item when that credit card bill comes in. So many people are misled by the fact that the credit card companies indicate a minimum amount that you have to pay. Your bill might be $500 for that month, but they tell you you only have to pay $50. The people don't realize that many of the credit card companies are charging between 22 and 28.9% on that balance.
Right, which is unbelievable. I mean, that's insurmountable for people if they let that go without realizing.
Literally, it could mean you are going to be paying for 15 to 25 years to pay off that bill. So if you want something, let's say it's a chair for your living room, and the chair costs $800. If you don't have that $800 in an account where you can just write a check, do not buy that chair until you have the $800, and then you can put it on your credit card. And when the bill comes in, you can pay for it without paying any additional interest charges.
Right, because that $800 chair, if you do pay that minimum down payment towards, the credit card fee, ultimately that $800 chair is turning into a $3,000 chair with interest.
Correct. That's correct.
That's the same with home buying. People don't realize you're not buying a house for $500,000. You're buying a house for $500,000 with interest when you're paying back your loan.
On a typical 30-year mortgage, whatever the price is that you're paying for the house, over 30 years, depending upon the interest rate, you could be paying as much as 3 times the original amount that you paid for the house.
Right, so
by the time it's paid off.
So $500,000 really is a $1.5 million house if you don't follow our tip to pay down your principal.
Yes.
Which is a good entryway into the next. One thing that that I absolutely love telling my clients is the prepayment and how to cut down on saving when you are assessing your amortization schedule. My title rep pointed out that I'm the only realtor in the entire office that goes over this with their clients. And it's one of my favorite tips because I think most people don't know this and most banks don't want you to know this, right? They get their money collecting on that interest. They don't want you to prepay and, avoid that payment. So let's break it down. When it comes down to buying your house, you said, 30-year loan, that's 360 payments that could be coming with interest. So how do you eliminate some of that interest?
Okay, let's start at the beginning. Over the 360 payments, initially, your first payment, let's just say your payment is $4,000 a month. Of that $4,000, possibly the first payment, hypothetically, might be $800 toward the repayment of the loan, and $3,200 is interest.
And that's probably high because for the first 5 years, the principal is so much lower and the interest is so much higher because statistically speaking, a borrower is going to default on their loan within the first 5 years. So the bank is trying to recover all of their money in that first 5 years.
Right. It's important to note that banks are in business to make money, and they make money by lending money to borrowers at a higher rate than the rate they pay on the deposits that are in their bank.
Right.
So if they are giving, and it's astounding, some banks are paying as little as 0.1%
Wow.
on the deposits.
Wow.
And this shows on your statement every month, and most people don't pay any attention to it. However, what's important to note is that if you have a mortgage, and in today's rate, let's say your mortgage is 6.5%.
Right, which is what as of the shooting of this video, I think we're at 6.6%.
If the bank is only paying 0.1%, or let's say on a CD, a certificate of deposit, let's say they're paying 2 or 3%, the difference is what the bank is earning on that money. So on a mortgage, the bank is giving you a rate for 30 years based on the current rate at the time they give you the mortgage. So the beginning payments, the early part of your mortgage, you are paying down a very minute amount of money back to the bank on that loan.
Right.
Most of it is interest.
So how do you avoid paying that interest?
Well, you can't avoid paying the interest, but you can come up with several solutions. Some institutions will allow you to pay additional principal payments. Example, if the mortgage is $4,000 a month, and that is your regular monthly payment, if $3,200 of that is interest and $800 is a repayment of the principal, some banks and other financial institutions will allow you to make additional principal payments. So in addition to the $800, which is your payment for principal, the next month's principal payment might be $802. If you pay that $802 as principal, and you have to specify with the financial institution that the additional payment you're making is toward the principal, you are now reducing that month's interest completely.
Right. So then month 2, when you go to pay your mortgage, you're actually paying month 3 because you've already paid months 2 principal, eliminating that interest.
Correct.
This is a game changer for people to pay down your mortgage in less than 30 years and save hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest.
Years ago, almost all of the institutions allowed this. Many of the financial institutions will not allow you to do this anymore.
We do. So make sure that before you get pre-approved for a loan, you check if there is a prepayment penalty. If there is, they're not going to allow you to do this. If there's not, then they will.
What's important to note is that many financial institutions, if you send in additional money and it's not stipulated as principal, they just apply that as part of the interest for your next month's payment. So you're not really reducing your principal at all.
Right.
You're just prepaying the interest.
Right. So that's why you have to make sure that you note that it is specifically going towards principal.
What I always did on the homes that we lived in was I got an amortization schedule.
Which you get at closing. They give it to you.
They now, okay, at the time you had to request it.
Yeah, which is crazy that they don't even give it to you, but now they do.
When you get that amortization schedule, it will show you each of the 360 payments, and it will be broken down.
Yeah.
It'll show you how much is the repayment of principal for payment number 1, payment number 2, payment number 3. And each month you will notice that the principal is actually increasing while the interest is decreasing.
Yep.
The principal, however, decreases by very small amounts.
When I show this to clients at the closing table, they cannot believe how much they are being charged in interest, because you're right. I mean, if it's a $4,000 payment, it's probably $300 that is paid towards the principal, and the rest of the $3,700 is interest.
Correct. It's important that you have the amortization schedule.
Yes.
And I advocate actually writing on the amortization schedule, if you make payment number 1, and I'll give you an example. Our first home was purchased in 1982. Jamie, you were only a year old at that time. When we bought the house, I made the first principal payment. I made the regular payment, and I made the next 9 principal payments. And I wrote on the amortization schedule, paid whatever the dollar amount was, the total, and I broke it down and said, this includes the first 9 payments of principal. My next month's payment will be payment number 10.
Right.
And indicated on the amortization schedule that now I'm on payment number 10, and I wrote down the date and the amount that I paid. If I had the money, I made 10 more principal payments, but if I didn't, whatever number of principal payments I could make in addition to the regular payment.
Right.
So we're not avoiding the next payment. We're just paying the next payment and the additional principal payments. So if I could only make 5 more payments, this was payment number 10, 5 more principal payments,
would make
my next payment is number 16.
Right, which is unbelievable. You know, some people say, I'm so stretched with my mortgage payment, I can't afford to pay any more. And if you really look at the amortization schedule, I would argue you can't afford not to do this, because what's going to save you in the moment, in the short term, you're going to end up paying in the long term millions. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It is. Banks don't want you to know anything about this, because that is where they're making their money.
Yep.
And that's why some banks will not allow you to do this. But whenever you can make additional payments, even if it doesn't give you a reduction in your principal, you're still paying off your mortgage earlier.
Yep.
And in today's interest rate environment, where you're paying over 6%, that's 6%. We don't know what the future holds in terms of interest rates.
Well, right. So historically, you know, you mentioned 1982. Didn't you say your interest rate was 18% at that time?
It was 17.25%.
So historically, I mean, they're probably, obviously we don't know if they're going to get back to that, but I mean, they're rising.
It's unlikely that interest rates would ever get back to that point. We were having a financial crisis at that time. And in order to fight inflation, just to put it in perspective, at that time, you could have purchased a 30-year treasury bond for 30 years, locking in 15%. CDs at the bank were paying between 14 and 15% at the time that you could lock in. But most people didn't want to take advantage of that because they thought rates were going to continue to go higher.
Right.
So when you know what your current rate is, there's no guaranteed rate right now where you can get a rate higher than the current mortgage rate for a guarantee. So if you can pay that down, it's to your benefit.
Definitely. So we kind of touched on this, but what is an interest rate and why is it so important?
Okay. An interest rate is the rate at which the lender charges the borrower. So if you go to a financial institution, or even if you go to a friend and you want to borrow money, the rate that institution or friend is charging you
on the money
is the interest rate.
And I think most people don't understand that you can prepay, you know, if your lender allows you to, that there are ways to get around it. Just because you're locked into a 30-year or a 15-year mortgage doesn't mean that you're wed to that payment schedule.
Anytime you borrow money, you always want to find out, is there a penalty for paying off the loan
sooner? Yep.
Correct.
Yep. What is the best way to build up good credit?
Pay your bills on time.
Period.
If there is a grace period, for example, on a mortgage, typically there's a 15-day grace period.
Or even 5 days. I mean, I think 15 days is very liberal.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Years ago it was 15.
Yeah, I think now it's 5, but don't quote me on that.
If you have a 5-day grace period and your payment is due on the 1st, do not wait 5 days and then make the payment.
Right.
Because if you want to have the highest credit rating, and the reason you want to have the highest credit rating is whenever you borrow money, your credit rating determines what your rate will be.
Right, most people don't understand that. Also, just because you have a lot of money or you have, a credit card doesn't mean that you have a good line of credit, right? Most people don't understand that it's the amount that you pay on your card versus what your credit limit is, and that buffer that also it signifies your credit, right? So if I have a $10,000 credit limit and every month I'm spending $10,000, that is not going to boost my credit. But if I have a $10,000 limit and I'm only spending $2,000, that $8,000 will boost your credit score.
Yes.
So you can call your credit card company and increase your line of credit to ensure that that helps with your overall credit. Most people don't know that either.
Right. The more credit cards you have also affects your credit,
Yes.
even if you pay your bills on time, because the more you have access to additional credit, the more risk there is to the lenders that you would tap those other lines of credit.
Yep.
And therefore it creates an environment where the credit agencies that determine what your credit score will be are affected.
So do you recommend closing credit cards that you don't use?
Yes, I do.
Regardless.
Regardless, if you're not using it. Now, many institutions offer you benefits whereby they encourage you to take out loans on your credit cards so that they can charge you those higher rates.
Right.
And they will encourage you by giving you, let's say, 1.5% or 2% back on each charge that you have, with the idea that you're getting something in return. But all you need is 1 month that you didn't make that payment, and they're charging you 22 to 29.9%
unbelievable
interest on that amount of money. So if you have a credit card, and this is typical when you're buying furniture, they want you to open a credit card with that company. Let's say it's Home Depot and you're buying new appliances. They will give you, let's say, a 10% discount on all of the items that you're buying if you take it out and put it on their credit card. Unless you're going to pay that off, do not do that.
And I know a lot of financial institutions typically say that like store-related cards are not the best to have.
Correct.
Although I do love my Nordstrom card. But overall, I would say, if you have to weigh the pros and cons of what the rewards are going to be to make it worth it.
Again, if you're putting something on a credit card, make sure you have the money when that bill comes in to be able to pay it off.
Yep. So what are the biggest financial mistakes that you have seen people make throughout your career?
One of the biggest mistakes we've already mentioned is buying on a credit card and not having the money to pay it off when the bill comes in. The other financial mistakes that people make is they spend more than they're making, and that puts them in debt. It affects their credit rating, and it's very difficult to get out of that deep hole.
What about, when they call it like lazy money, people that just have their money like just sit in a savings account that's maybe not high yield, or they don't invest either in real estate or the stock market? Do you advise people to just have their money sit around doing nothing?
The money that should be basically sitting around, meaning it's not invested for the longer term, is the money that you need for short-term expenses. Anything that is going to be sitting for 6 months or more should at the very minimum be in a high-yielding savings account or a short-term certificate of deposit known as a CD.
And do you need a financial advisor to put money in a high yield savings account?
You do not. Usually the brokerage firms offer rates on money market accounts that are higher than the bank offers, but having the money in a bank where you have ready access to it is certainly fine.
So in terms of financial mistakes, one that we've talked about that I see all the time, which I'm always shocked, is when people dip into their 401k to pay for their deposit for their down payment for their house. Would you recommend that someone do that?
Never, never, never take money from your 401k for any reason.
So if you dip into that, typically you can't afford it otherwise if you're doing that.
That's
so
correct.
Does that mean
delay your purchase?
Exactly. Until you have the money outside of that. The penalty to dip into your 401k is there to protect you from yourself. And people need that.
That's correct. However, on a first-time home purchase, you are permitted to take out up to $10,000 without a penalty, but I do not recommend that. I don't think it's beneficial. And remember, the purpose of a 401k or any retirement account is to have that money available for retirement.
Right.
It is not for individual purchases that you want to make on the way to retirement.
Right, because you're missing out on that compound interest by taking it out now. Explain compound interest, because I think some people might not understand that.
Okay. Let's say you have money in the bank. And let's say you have, well, let's just start with a small amount of money. You have $1,000 in the bank. And let's say the bank is giving you 3%. At the end of the year, you earned 3% on that $1,000, which amounts to $30. Now, if you take that interest, that $30, and you use it, you did not have the opportunity for that $1,030
to
grow and compound
even more
at another interest rate. So as a result, what many people do who don't have their money invested other than at the bank is they'll have, let's say they have $100,000. They don't want to take any risk with it. So they put it in the bank and they have it in, let's say, a CD that's paying 3%. So on that $100,000, they are getting $3,000 a year in interest. They will then take that $3,000 and use that money to live on. So the $100,000 is not growing. Now, over a period of 10 years, if all you're doing is drawing that interest, the $100,000 remains $100,000. But the cost of living, also known as inflation, is continuing to rise. And as it rises, you're not being able to keep pace,
right?
Because your $100,000
is not growing.
Is not growing at all.
What is the difference between a Roth IRA and a traditional IRA and a SEP IRA? And which one would be best for me, specifically for people that don't have an employment plan, right? I mean, I'm an independent contractor. I don't have anyone paying into my 401k. Obviously, I have IRAs. What is the difference?
Okay. First of all, an IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account, which means it is for you only. You are permitted to put money into an IRA if you are employed, or if you're not employed but your spouse is employed, you are permitted to put money into a retirement account called an IRA. Currently, you can put up to $7,000 into an IRA. If you are over 50, you're permitted to put in an additional $1,000, which is a total of $8,000 that you can put in to this retirement plan. With a regular traditional IRA, the money that you put in when you go to pay your taxes, reduces your income by that amount. So hypothetically, just to make it easy, if your income is $100,000 and you put $8,000 into an IRA, when you file your taxes, assuming you don't have any other deductions, you are permitted, you are going to be taxed on $92,000 because your $8,000 contribution to the IRA
Doesn't get included.
So it immediately gives you a tax benefit, and that money grows tax deferred until you retire, which for tax purposes is age 59 and a half or later. If, however, you take that money out before you're 59 and a half, there is a tax penalty and you owe the taxes on the money that you're taking out. Now, a Roth IRA works the opposite way. The contributions are the same. However, with a Roth, you get no tax benefit up front. So if you're making $100,000 and you put $8,000 into your Roth, you're still going to be taxed on the $100,000. But the benefit is that Roth contribution will grow year after year after year, depending upon how it's invested. It will compound. And when you retire and you take the money out, you will pay no taxes on that money.
And do you recommend tapping into your IRA or 401k before retirement age?
No.
And what if you absolutely have to?
I would say explore every other option that you can before taking money out of a retirement plan, because the big benefit of the retirement plan is that that money is growing tax deferred, and you cannot get another benefit that will reward you the way the retirement plans reward you. Now, you mentioned the SEP IRA.
Yes.
For people who are self-employed or are self-employed and have some employees, a SEP is a very viable option because now you're not limited the way you are with an IRA. You are able to put a percentage away, and it's a higher percentage based on how much you earn. So for example, people who are in real estate are basically independent contractors.
Yes.
They may or may not have other employees. They are able to contribute more, but it's based on how much they actually earn. And therefore, based on that number, they're able to put away more money and get the benefits of the tax deferral.
And do you recommend that? What about for someone who may not, like, let's say they're my age, in their 40s, they don't have a father who's been able to teach them the right ways. They have no retirement savings. What would you recommend? Where do you recommend someone starts?
I say start today. Look at your expenses. Determine what percentage you are permitted based on your own budget. What percentage can you put away? Even if you can't do it on a regular basis, how much money can you put away into a retirement plan? Or for that matter, even if it's not a plan that's tax deferred, if you max out the ability to put money into an IRA or a Roth, the fact that you can just invest money separately in whatever type of investment you want, even if you're keeping it in the bank, that money can grow and compound. You're not getting the tax benefit, but you are getting the benefit of knowing that there's money being put aside that you're not going to touch. That money you're putting away for the future. Start today. And the best way to do it is look very carefully at all of your expenses.
So when I get paid, I always take out immediately my retirement, my taxes, right? The way that you've taught me. With that said, some people wait till the end of the year to see how much they've made, and then they max it out then. Do you think that does that matter in terms of compounding? Like whether I'm each month putting it in or putting it in at the end of the year?
The sooner you put it in, the more beneficial it is. However, many people, such as people in your position where you really don't know what your commissions are going to be, it's okay to wait until later in the year and do it at that time.
As long as you do it during that window, because you can't miss the window or then you miss the year.
That is correct.
What are your favorite financial management tips that not everyone knows? So we covered pay yourself first. We covered the amortization schedule, which is my all-time favorite one. I love the idea of, like, when I was first starting out with my budget, one trick that you gave me that has really helped was to create funds for all the different things that I would want to do, right? Whether we were buying a house or going on vacation. And as I would get my paychecks, I would put a bit of money in each of these accounts. And then over time, I would say to Mike, we've got $5,000 in our vacation fund, let's take a trip. Or we have $5,000 in our house fund, what would we like to do to renovate it? But it wasn't until that money was there that we would entertain the ideas of doing those types of things. Do you still recommend that that's the best way to start out with a budget?
It's one of the best ways. With finances, there's not necessarily a right or a wrong answer.
Right, it's what works best for you.
Each person or each couple has to make the decision of what are our priorities. Many people feel, and we live in a world of instant gratification, especially younger people who are accustomed, especially if it's a person, a professional who's making nice money, or if it's a person who's an electrician or a plumber, where they're making very good money, but there's really nobody that they are meeting with to give them financial advice. I think everybody should have a financial advisor, someone that they can bounce ideas off of and can get advice of what is best for them. There's no question that we see things and we want them, and we don't want to wait. We don't want to wait 6 months to get it.
Right, and I think some people who are, so excited to buy a house and they have the solution of tapping into their 401k, they don't want to wait for the 6 months or the year that it's going to take to save that down payment, right? They want to move now. How do you talk to someone who is really, really struggling with not wanting to wait?
If you're struggling with yourself. And we are our own worst enemies.
Isn't that the truth? We also, the biggest lie we tell is the one we tell ourselves. So, we may lie to ourselves saying that we're, this financially prudent person when sometimes we're not, right?
What's amazing is it has nothing to do with intelligence. It has nothing to do with what degrees you may have. It has to do with A, what are the things that you prioritize in your life? And B, do you have money put aside to pay for that priority?
I also think it comes down to education, though. I mean, how fortunate am I that I grew up in a home with a financial advisor father who was able to always advise me. Most people, they don't know the first thing about Budget 101 or investing in the stock market or even investing in real estate. I mean, it's a very daunting process for people who just don't understand. So talk to me like I haven't had 44 years of learning with you. Explain to me the stock market from someone who might not know where to start, and they want to invest in the stock market, but they know nothing about it.
Okay. A simple way to look at it is, and I like to use this example, particularly with children. I've been invited on numerous occasions to go into 4th or 5th grade classrooms to talk about the stock market. And the example I use is Disney. Almost every child has either been to Disney or is familiar with what Disney represents in terms of movies, in terms of TV shows, Disney Plus, or actually going to the theme parks. So I like to use Disney as an example. If Disney is financially successful, if they have a good year, their earnings are going to go up. If their earnings go up, more people want to invest in Disney stock. And you can buy Disney stock. You become part owner of the company. And that is the stock market.
So when you buy a stock, right, you can buy one share or thousands of shares.
You can.
Does it matter?
Typically, it's not prudent to just buy one share because it'll take quite a while for you to really make some money.
So is there like a minimum shares that you would recommend?
No, I would say, and you can start with a young child.
Right, I think that was my first stock was Disney.
Yes. Disney is a great example because most young people can relate to Disney. The idea that the stock market is confusing is really not a valid concept. The stock market is essentially a lot of individual companies that offer stock that are open to the public, and through the stock market you can purchase individual shares of those stocks. So most of the major companies, whether it's Apple, everybody can relate to an iPhone.
Yep.
Whether it
I know,
is,
you even have an iPhone.
Even I.
Never thought that day would come.
Even I have an iPhone. I don't know how to use all of the different applications, but
or answer it.
I do know how to answer it. But the point is, everybody can relate to
Yes.
certain companies. And it's great to start out with a company, that the child can relate to, or if you're an adult and you've never invested in the market, something that you can relate to. As simple as a product that you use, that you know other people are using and is financially successful. As their revenue increases, the value of the stock will increase because more people will want to own it.
So
And essentially what makes the stock market go up or down is on any given day, if there are more people who want to buy it, the price goes up. If there are more sellers that day, the price goes down. And this is going on constantly every second from 9:30 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Millions and millions of shares are being traded by people who want to sell as well as people who want to buy.
So would you recommend choosing one company or going straight to the S&P? Explain to me the S&P.
Right.
Like, I don't know what that is.
When you're starting out, I think you're better off not owning one individual stock, unless it's for a child and you want the child to understand the concept. But starting out, I would say your first $10,000 that you're putting away, you should put into either an S&P 500, which is Standard & Poor's 500 index, which is the largest 500 companies in the United States, or something that is equivalent or very similar would be a blue chip stock fund where they're buying the best quality companies in the United States. And what it does is gives you the opportunity to own companies, many of which pay dividends on a quarterly basis. Dividends are a portion of the profits that a company makes.
And they share with you if you are the owner.
If you own those shares, it's called a mutual fund. They own a lot of individual stocks. They take those dividends and they buy more shares of that fund. So over a period of years, if you're getting dividends 4 times a year and you don't touch it, you just let that money get reinvested, your investment is compounding, which is the key word. It's growing and it's compounding year after year. And if the market goes down, don't be disillusioned, because that means when the dividends are paid, you're getting more shares at a lower price. Mutual funds, however, are not an investment for short-term.
Right, so that's where I think people panic when it goes down. They pull their money, not realizing that it's going to go back up. It's like the market with respect to real estate too. You know, most people don't think of it as a commodity, but it is.
The difference, however, is, and real estate can be a wonderful investment, but real estate is not as liquid as the stock market.
Right.
So if you need money right away, you can liquidate an investment in the stock market
Instantly.
and the next day your money is available.
Yes. If you want to sell your house, it could take 6 months.
Exactly.
So one of the biggest financial faux pas is leasing a car. So talk to me about why you shouldn't lease versus buy, and when it is prudent to maybe lease.
Okay. The purchase of a vehicle is one of the worst investments you can make. The reason is that cars go down in value. If you buy a new car, as soon as you drive it away
It depreciates.
from the dealership, it has already depreciated.
Yep. Uncle Bill says that all the time.
That is absolutely true. So the important thing to be aware of is the only benefit of leasing is that you have the opportunity to get a new car every time your lease is up every 2 or 3 years.
Right, but then you never own it and you're paying basically someone else
Forever.
forever.
If you want a car, you're always going to have a car payment. Now, it can be beneficial if you want to have a new car every few years to have a lease if you own your own business, because then there are some tax benefits to writing it off as a business expense. But other than that, there's no benefits financially, other than the fact that you don't have to lay out the money for a new car. Typically, you pay a certain amount up front to initiate the lease, and then you just make monthly payments.
So really, in order to be the most financially prudent, if we were going to buy a car, you recommend saving up for the cash and just buying it outright.
Correct. Correct. Even if you're making monthly payments, own the car. That way you are able to trade it in whenever you want. There's no limit to how many miles you are permitted.
That's why it really doesn't make sense for me. I mean, I put too many miles on my car, first of all, to even lease. But most people don't put on the kind of mileage on their car the way I do with my job.
For people who don't put a lot of miles on, and many of the leases start as little as 10,000 miles that you're permitted to put on per year. Sometimes it might be a lease that's 15,000 miles a year, but the more miles you are allowed, the higher the monthly payment for that lease. Keeping in mind that if you plan to own a car for more than just a few years, it's certainly more beneficial for you to own the car. That way, anytime you want to trade it in, or if you're not happy with it, you're not obligated to hold it until the end or pay a penalty to buy out the lease before the termination date.
Right, and like what I've always done is to minimize your expenses is to not have that be an expense. You wait until you can buy it outright, and then you don't have a monthly expense of a car if you've already bought it.
That's correct.
So last question, circling back to real estate, I see so many people in my industry say, oh, you don't need 20% down, you need as little as 5% down, anyone can buy a house. Talk to me about PMI, and do you recommend that people wait until they have the 20% down payment? Or do you think that that philosophy is outdated and that people should not be waiting until they've saved up 20%?
You get the best rate typically on a conventional mortgage by putting the 20% down. There are times when financial institutions might create some incentive for you to put down a little less and they'll still give you a favorable rate. But for the most part, a conventional mortgage says that you must put down 20%. If you put down less than 20%, there's something called a PMI. PMI is actually a penalty that you pay for additional insurance to make sure that there's enough equity in the home. And therefore, until you have accumulated 20%,
you're being penalized.
You're being penalized. And therefore, it's costing you more because you didn't put down the 20%.
Right. So if someone is on the fence about whether or not they wait, the guidance would still be to wait, that it's prudent to wait. I would even argue too, I tell people, once you're pre-approved and you have that monthly amount, start living on that monthly amount before you buy the house to see if that's a comfortable number for you.
Excellent idea.
Wouldn't you rather do that before you have a $100,000 plus asset that you're living with?
But see, a lot of people, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, a lot of people want it now.
Yep.
They don't want to wait. The idea of instant gratification becomes more important than anything.
It's so much more enjoyable, and there's something about it that's so much more special when you actually save for it. Now, when I drive around in my car, it's so much more impactful knowing I bought that car by myself cash, in full. Like, that goes a long way versus, I'm paying a monthly payment and the car owns me.
Let me just give you a quick example. Studies have been done with people who have won the lottery.
I know what you're going to
People
say.
have inherited millions of dollars in the lottery. Within 2.5 years, the majority of them have gone through their money.
Also, isn't there the option of having it paid at the beginning for less, or waiting and getting the full amount, and the very few people actually wait to get the full amount because they want the less amount now?
Typically,
how does that make sense?
Typically with the lottery, you have the choice of taking the total amount up front, paying the taxes, or getting the money paid over a period of time. And that might be 20 years.
Right.
Where you get a portion of the money each year, and then you're only taxed on the portion that you get.
Yep.
Most people want that money up front, and therefore they're getting less, but they have it all up front. They're more apt to go through that money because A, they didn't work to get it. It was a gift through the lottery that they wanted, and therefore they're buying cars, they're buying boats, they're buying houses, sometimes multiple houses. And they forget or don't realize they've got to pay taxes on everything they're buying.
Yep.
Years ago, on the Oprah Winfrey Show, she was giving away a new car to everybody in the audience. And everybody who got that car didn't realize
they had to pay taxes.
They had to pay taxes on the gift. Many of them had to give up the car, sell it, because they couldn't afford the taxes on the gift.
Wow.
So most people don't think about how much money do you have, even if you're making a large sum of money in a salary or commissions. How much money are you going to have after you've paid the taxes?
Yep.
That's the amount that you have available to spend.
That's your net, right? Because you're not netting it if you're paying it towards taxes.
That's correct.
Now, speaking of that, Talk to me about capital gains, because I think a lot of people don't understand, and especially now that I have a divorce certification, I'm working with a lot of divorced couples. Most couples don't understand that if they're both on the deed and they go to sell the house, they are going to be paying capital gains as a couple. And in some cases, they've already gotten divorced, so they're really not in fact a couple, but they're getting taxed like they are.
When you're dealing with real estate, if it's your primary residence, a couple is permitted to make a profit of $500,000 over what they paid for the property.
And any improvements that they've made subtracted.
That is correct. So as a result, if you bought a home for $500,000 and you sell that home for $1 million, essentially there's no taxes.
Right.
Because you've made a $500,000.
But if you sell it for 1.2, that is $200,000 are going to be taxed, and that's pretty significant.
That is correct. Now, if you're a single individual,
right,
you're permitted to make $250,000 if it is your primary residence.
And is that every year, or that's for every sale?
Total, each time you sell. Now, what you need to be aware of is that's only on your primary residence. If it's an investment property, the property that you bought for $500 and you sell for $1 million, you now have a $500,000 capital gain. A capital gain is the profit that you make when you sell something that you have held for a year and 1 day. If you sell it for less than a year and 1 day, that income that you've made is added to your income for that year, that tax year. If you held it for a year and a day and you sell it, and it's not your primary residence, you get what is called a more favorable tax treatment, and the gain is called a capital gain, and it is taxed typically at a lower rate than the tax bracket that the individual is in. It's always advisable on any of the things that we've discussed today to speak with your tax advisor to make sure that your situation is not unique.
Absolutely, because even, the prepayment penalty and prepayment amortization that we've discussed may not benefit you if you bought during COVID and your interest rate is a 2.5%. You really have to weigh the options to see. At that point, your interest rate is so low, it may be more advantageous for you to take the money and do something else with it, right?
That is correct. And
so it really comes down to your specific financial picture.
Using the example that you just made, someone who has a mortgage that is, let's say, 2.9% because they bought it during COVID when interest rates were extremely low, where can you borrow money for 30 years and only pay 2.9% on the money?
Nowhere.
So as a result, you may not want to pay off that low rate.
It might be
knowing
more.
that you've locked in a loan for 2.9% over 30 years.
So then you just let that ride and take the money that you would be paying down for the principal
and put it into an investment.
Exactly. Or buy an investment property.
Exactly.
So one thing that I absolutely love and respect about you is you've never made anyone feel bad for not being where they want to be financially. And I think that it's a really good lesson because people who are watching this might be like, oh my God, I've done it all wrong, or oh my gosh, I'm not where I want to be, or, I'm in my 40s and I don't have necessarily the retirement that I was hoping for, or, I think that the biggest lesson is that anyone can start today, right? It doesn't have to. Beating yourself up is not going to get you to where you want to be financially. So just be honest with yourself about where you're at and then take the steps to get to where you want to be?
Many people are intimidated when it comes to money. Many people feel they don't want to go to a financial advisor, either because they don't want to share where they are financially in their life, or they're embarrassed. Other than your health, your money is one of the most important things that will determine what your life is going to be like.
And do you find throughout your career when people would talk to you, they would be embarrassed?
Some people will not get to the point where they go to a financial advisor because they're intimidated and don't want to speak honestly about their situation. Most of the people who came to me as a financial advisor recognized that they want advice. They're not obligated to take the advice, although most people did, but they wanted to get a second opinion. When it comes to your health, and you go to the doctor and the doctor gives you a diagnosis, are you just going to accept that diagnosis, or are you going to get a second opinion?
Right.
I advocate getting a second opinion. And I also advocate that if you're dealing with someone who is giving you advice and you're not happy with that advice, seek out someone else, someone that matches your objectives, that you feel has your best interests at heart. And that's the way to get good financial advice.
So looking back on your life and your career spanning, 40 plus years, what would you say was the best financial advice you ever gave someone?
I think the best advice that I've ever given to anybody was pay yourself first. Because that way,
you always save.
You're always going to have money for a rainy day.
Yep.
You're always going to have money put aside for your goals, and it's yours.
So many people, they pay their bills and then they have nothing left to show for it. And if you don't pay yourself first, there's no way to ever do that.
That's correct.
Thanks, Dad. I appreciate it this time.
My pleasure.
If you do have a question, feel free to reach out to me and I would be happy to help you. And remember, I'm Jamie Hartman with New Roots South Jersey, and I'm here to help you grow roots.